pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, do we want Terry to stay for any of this discussion?
I think we're okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
all right.
And if you want to send me them, I'll run them for you again, Dwayne. Thank you.
Roll call shows everyone present. We have a couple of additions to the agenda.
Also move to approve the additions to the agenda. Second.
Motion been made, second to approve the addition to the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Open forum. Anybody wish to speak? And Rick?
I'm just going to plug quick and get out of here.
Just like this, first off, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Rick Tallman, 25594 Lake Road. I'd like to speak about the discussion that was just at the finance meeting on the sewer and water rates. And in the diagrams that Terry here had given, the existing rates, as she showed, due to the amount of water that was sold, came up $5,850.71 short of the operating budget. And I'm assuming this is just water, right? This isn't sewer?
Right, that's water.
Just water, okay. And then you go to example 3, if you did away with all the base charges and just charged per thousand a gallon, you'd end up coming up $43 short of budget. $43. Any business, whether it's your water utility or the gas station down the road or any business, they have fixed costs. When you go into the gas station, do they charge you a base fee when you walk in? No. You operate on what you're selling. And when she was talking about the city can establish fair and equitable charges, this is true. But you left out the second part of the statement there. Charges for services must be, as nearly as possible, proportionate to the cost of furnishing those services, even if the local charter provides otherwise. I'm just warning the council now that if you proceed this route, that you're going to continue to, first off, we don't have separate meters. I know your ordinance states that, they're not there. Normally when changes are made, existing structures are grandfathered in. New structures would be required, or when you're doing a remodel, yes, you could require that. But they are not in place now. So if we end up this route and you continue charging this way, I've been very strongly against the way these charges are being made. I have two other options that I'm looking at. One would be the state auditor. And I have specific questions that I want them to go and look at. And when we look at another thing that was brought up a number of times is the sewer debt would not change no matter what other charges may change. Let's look at that sewer debt once. If the sewer went down the road and you were going to charge a special assessment because of that sewer, it would be charged so much per foot of frontage. That would be a certain figure. If that frontage, let's say, was 150 foot on a rental property, and the same frontage on a single-family home was 150 feet, those costs would be exactly the same for that special assessment. Now the way it's being charged, on a 12-unit property with 150 foot of frontage, you're paying, the sewer debt fee is $336 every billing period. On a single-family home, it's $28. These are just things I'm bringing up to you, and if you think that's fair, then that's up to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Anyone else? Okay. Consent agenda.
I'll make a move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Mr. Mayor, comments, please?
Go ahead,
On
Dwayne.
the consent agenda, under the minutes, I'd like to pull out the committee assignments and discuss that separately, or if there's a modification, I was wrong. The Public Works Committee, it looks like Don Simon and myself, that's what's listed here. And I don't remember, at the January meeting, there was a number of different people that were taking on liaison positions, and I thought Jeff Hagan was the individual that was serving on the Public Works Committee along with Don Simon.
Excuse me, I'm wondering if, what's her name?
Terry?
Hey, Terry, would you mind just sticking around? I've got a few questions when we get, I don't know if that's feasible, or else if we could bring that forward.
Adjust it quickly.
Yeah, bring that. I just have one other question or two that I'd like to run by her.
Well, she's
Well, we can
here.
put this, let's just put this consent agenda issue
Well,
on.
I can answer
hold.
Dwayne's question. I did go back and listen to the tapes. It was Councilmember Volkmuth that suggested that he stay on that, he moved to the Finance Committee,
That who did?
that Randy moved to the Finance Committee, that the mayor moved to Personnel, and that you take it. There was no objection to it.
Okay, I didn't.
I be honest, it wasn't what I thought, but if that's what I said, then I guess.
I listened to it
Okay.
specifically. yeah.
What is the intent? You know, I've got a fairly heavy load, and I don't know, the mayor and I had a very brief discussion one day, and he was not aware of it either. If I remember right, that you were off the committee or something like that on the, and we can't have three because then it's a public hearing, or it's a open meeting law. So we can only have two committee members, that would be voting members of the council. So we can't fill it with three. So I gladly yield, you know.
Okay. I guess I don't have a problem. I'll go back on the Public Works
Okay.
if you got too much. Yeah.
Well, it's not, I just thought that you had been on there and that you knew it, and I have plenty of other things to do or something like that. And my name is all over that place, and so.
Well, again, when you come down to committee, it's up to the individual in this council to decide how many of these things he wants to take on. If you want to be on, you know, the Rockville Trail, the planning committee liaison us, plus, like I am up here, I could have done that too. I mean, you just take what you feel you're comfortable with and
Well, I think
fly with it.
I think what I'm hearing here, though, is that Dwayne is willing to defer to Jeff
Yeah,
on this
understandable.
particular one. and-
Yeah, on that particular one.
And
And I didn't realize that that was the dialogue, that was my bad here toward you,
So-
Randy.
Well, and it
So
might have been one of
can-
those deals where I just
The
said,
minutes are correct, but you're gonna motion and switch it out now.
So can we move
do
the
that.
consent
Okay.
agenda
Under a
with that
motion.
correction?
Okay,
Do it under a motion, Dwayne.
okay, then I'll make a motion that I yield the position on Public Works, and I'd recommend that we'd have Jeff Hagan take that spot on the Public Works Committee.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and second to just put Jeff Hagan instead of Dwayne on the Public Works Committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same, motion passes.
And then there's a motion and a second for the consent agenda on the floor.
Okay, yeah, with that modification, yep.
Yep.
Motion been made second to accept the consent agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion passes. Terry, you want to come up real quick and then,
Maybe we can just go to that portion of the finance committee and just kind of have the discussion there, if that would be okay.
Is that okay with everybody? All right. Do you want, what, the finance committee just held a meeting, but if everybody recalls, the previous council approved hiring Terry as a consultant from Minnesota Rural Water to help us look at a rate study. And Terry did it in conjunction with the city staff and myself from the finance committee to take a look really at two questions. One is the basis for how we're charging fair and equitable. And secondly, are our rates where they need to be to cover the cost of operating our system? So in working with Terry, we first looked at the number of connections in the city, which currently the city charges, and per ordinance, charges 1 unit per every, well, we define a unit as a residence, a commercial enterprise, or an apartment unit. So within that, we have 382 connections in the city. We looked at the total budget for the city and looked at it in terms of how much was fixed cost and how much is variable costs. That helps determine what your base rate and your volume rate should be for the city. I know the questions were raised about whether we should consider doing our units differently. And the finance committee, after looking at this, and I think Terry would say there's different cities do it different ways. Some cities could go to fully charging just on a volume rate. Many cities do a base rate and a volume rate, and there's, I think, a myriad of things in between. It has to be what fits for your city. And we looked at it and said, there's a certain amount of fixed costs that we would incur for just operating our water system, and we need to cover those costs. That's what the base rate covers. The base rate is not simply reading your meter cost. The base rate covers a multitude of other things, including the debt service in the fund, utilities in the fund, insurance, staff time, a number of other things. So in looking at this, I guess the recommendation from the finance committee to the council is to continue doing it on a per unit basis as we have defined in our ordinance currently. We think it's fair and reasonable, and it's also, I think, not a difficult way for staff to administer, and frankly, we don't have a huge city staff, so to put something in place that's really, really complicated, it might mean we have to hire another person to help administer. It doesn't really make sense either. So with that, I think the finance committee is making a recommendation, one, that we continue charging one unit the way we've been doing it, and then we do need to increase our rates because we don't actually cover the costs of operating the fund. So our current rates are $9.20 for the base fee, $3.32 for a volume rate, and we are recommending that the base rate go to $9.54 and $3.55 on the volume side. So 2 recommendations from the study that was done.
Okay, that's your question?
Yeah, I guess my question is, what we have put forth, do you believe that it's, I guess, alluding to Rick's deal in regards to the auditor's office and all that other stuff, do we have anything that we need to fear that you've seen that, are we being fair?
Are you charging fair and equitable?
Yeah.
In my opinion, yes. However, everything you do can be challenged in a court of law, and that may happen. And you have to be aware of that, but that's everything you do. One thing I would say is that used to be things got grandfathered in if they were done before. Now usually what I've seen is when a city puts an ordinance in, they will usually tell the people that you have 1 year, 2 years, or whatever amount of time to become compliant with the ordinance. So that's kind of changed a little over my time in cities. Used to be, a lot of things got grandfathered in. Now, sometimes if you need people to adhere to your ordinance, sometimes you have to set a time limit to get them to do that. And that's your choice. I don't know your city situation. If everything somebody's done and not adhered to your ordinance, I don't know the timelines when it comes in, when it doesn't. A lot of times you can find things on the books that the council says it was a hardship to put in meters and they didn't do it. You'll have to research how you got to that point, but that would be one thing you might want to consider when you do put an ordinance in, put a timeline as to when people have to become compliant, if it's not just a grandfathered in. I would agree with that.
Okay.
That helps you. But you can be challenged for everything.
Well,
you
no,
do.
I totally understand that. I just want to make sure that we're standing on pretty firm footing as far as the thought process behind it. And
I
from
think
what
you
I've
can
seen-
justify your base and your volume.
Yeah.
Because you've thought it through and you've looked at what's going into it. Can you tweak it, as Dwayne and I talked about? You can change those percentages however they work for you. The bottom line is, if you have a water system that needs $110,000 a year to run, and you have 382 connections, you have to figure out how 382 connections.
But we don't have 382 connections, we have
Well,
about
you have
272 connections,
272.
but
Or units, I should have said.
382 units that we're charging, yeah.
My mistake, I'm sorry.
I would just like the minutes to kind of reflect that we kind of talked about this and how we've come about that, you know, maybe we can even cite this as proof as far as how we're coming about this, because I just want to make sure that we've got our Ts crossed and Is dotted on this particular stuff.
I think relative to whether our ordinance is in compliance, or our policy is in compliance with our ordinance, I think we should take a look at our ordinance and make sure that it's in compliance with our policy. If not, I think we should look at amending the ordinance. And relative to the requirement we have in there right now that every unit's got to have its own meter, I think we can look at waiving that requirement as long as there's an understanding that each unit's going to be charged a base rate. So something along that line, but I just think to make sure
that
we're addressing issues that Rick has brought up, that we should make our ordinances consistent with our policy as
policies, yep.
possible.
Okay, so that basic code sentence, no more than one housing unit or building shall be supplied from one service connection, except by permission of the city council. That takes care
Yeah, I
of that
mean,
one, but
maybe
you
we
want
need
to
a-
add something more about,
Maybe we need a sentence in there that says, recognizing we have multiple units on one meter, the city is still going to charge on a per unit basis, base rate.
Mr. Mayor, when Rena just read that, she has to take into consideration the first portion of the paragraph, and that is where a consumer has need for a larger line, and then, as in the case of a commercial consumer who needs a 1-inch line for normal use and a 6-inch
I
line
was
for a
reading the other
larger.
one on top of it, Dwayne.
What's that?
I was
We're reading
reading
the
this
one up
one, you're
here.
reading
Okay,
that
but
one.
in that case, then it's the meter will be attached to the smaller domestic line, okay. So you're talking about the other one, supply one service? That's for the permission by the council.
Yeah,
And just always run your ordinances past your city attorney so that you know you've crossed all your Ts and dotted all your Is.
Yeah, I think we better just run it through.
so
Legal.
at this point, are you going to recommend going forth with the public hearing process?
Yes.
Well, I think we have time, I mean, because you're going to suggest we schedule a public hearing with the understanding you don't think our ordinance is consistent with our policy? I mean, if you feel that that's the case, then
No,
I
I
guess we
think
could
you're
schedule.
looking for a public hearing for the
Hearing
rates.
to the rates?
To the rates.
Oh, we have
portion
to have
of
a public hearing for the rates?
it. Rates,
Okay.
yes, we do.
All right.
Well, first off, I think we have to make
a-
do we have to have a motion to state that we want to continue with 1 unit equals 1 base rate? Or,
That's already in the ordinance.
okay, so we really don't, that's just, all right. So then I'll go ahead and make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the increase on the water rates for March.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I think maybe amend that motion to recommend those rates to the council has to approve those rates for the public hearing or not?
I think what you talked
We
about
all-
it here tonight, that's in the form of
Okay.
the
Oh,
ordinance
okay,
itself.
the rates that we're recommending would be that the base rate would go to 954 and the
355 for the volume
and the
rate.
volume rate would be 355. Just
Motion
kinda
made
get that.
second for discussion. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, and this information was just presented to us tonight or something like that, and I don't feel that I can make a positive, informed decision of this here, and we've waited this long. I mean, we've had this going on since 2005 when the ordinance was modified, so it's been a long, long time. What's the urgency factor at this magical spot? So, you know, instead of making a decision right now, I think it'd be wise for us to table this for a month and then decide on that information, because quite frankly, right now, I'd have to vote against the motion, quite frankly, based on the limited amount of time that I've had. I got this here tonight when I walked into the meeting.
Yeah, well, we're going to have 30 days at least for the public hearing.
Okay,
Right.
well, then I'm gonna go on record that I'm going to be against it now, and I'm gonna be against it then, and that's the way I'm gonna be voting until I have some additional, I don't think we have proper dialogue at this stage of the game as a council. If we're gonna slam dunk this through at this stage of the game, we had a finance committee with limited amount of allowing back and forth. We had a resident that came forward very concerned about the legality of it, and now we're going ahead on it in just moments. What's one more month at this stage of the game? So I plead again to
Well,
at least consider.
I don't mind pushing it off one more month for the mere fact that it wouldn't go into effect May 1st anyways. I mean, if we push it off to a public hearing in April, you know, I mean, if that makes you feel better to have a month and a half to go through it, 2 months, I mean.
Well, it's only 1 month. I'm just suggesting at this stage of the game.
I still think it would
What's
be
the urgency
smart
factor?
to go ahead and plan the public hearing, and if we feel like there is no need for an increase, let's pull it off. And I don't think that'd be a big issue, but I mean, if you're looking at moving it to April, I mean, I guess I could go with you on that. I mean, I don't have a problem.
And the reason for it, quite frankly, and we talked about a very limited amount, and the fixed cost versus the variable costs or something like that, based on the information that I've seen right here, there's a few of them that just feel like, you know, a mere thing of taking it for 70%, and that's a big item, and that's the debt service, obviously. And if we have more of it goes toward the base fee, or more of it goes toward the water usage fee, quite frankly, if I remember right, Terry, you had also talked about the higher base fee and/or other communities have a lower base fee. So it's not standard throughout. And the other thing is that, quite frankly, none of our neighbors use that modifier in their, there's one. There's St. Joe, I believe, and I talked to the staff person at St. Joe, and it says it's the most challenging thing that they have is to go in the billing clerk, not the administrator, but the billing clerk. So none of our neighbors, if it's that great, why wouldn't all of our neighbors have the equivalent dwelling units in their system? Because we have for years been using our neighbors as the barometer. And so here I'm pleading again at this stage of the game. It's not a public hearing, it's a dialogue that we have as a council, and that I would plead that we just give it 1 more month for us all to understand what it is. And maybe it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it'll go.
Can I just clarify 2 things that you said, though? I mean, one, I think, just to be clear, I think it really depends when you're looking at other cities, and I would caution the comparison. I mean, I would say, for example, it depends, what's the level of debt service they have?
Sure.
Is going to make a huge difference in what that base rate needs to be. And I think you can make an argument that 100% of it should be in the base rate, because that debt service has to be covered. We didn't put it all in the fixed part of it. Secondly, I mean, whether a city is doing depreciation or not. I mean, so I think there's a lot of different factors and ways people do these. And then just to clarify, we're not doing a multiplier. We are doing a
Not doing
unit.
You're
We're
not,
not doing an equivalent unit, which is what St. Joe is doing.
Yes.
So we're
Actually,
not
it's
doing that,
complicated.
and we're not proposing to do that, because I agree with you, it's complicated, and
your ordinance says 1 housing unit, 1 hookup. So we kind of get confused, and I did when I first came here too, because some people call it residential dwelling units, some call it dwelling units. You're actually doing a 1 unit, 1 base charge. So you're not doing the meter multiplier, okay?
But it's also
It
in
looks
business,
like a meter.
but it's also in businesses where one business has 1 bathroom and 4 different entities.
That would be a
So it's not just,
equivalency.
okay,
You're not
that's
doing
what
that.
we're doing right now.
Okay.
we're not, no, we're doing 1 business, 1 apartment, 1
charge.
residential unit is 1 unit.
One
That's
base rate.
defined, 1 base rate.
Business.
Okay.
All right, motion's been made second. I'll clarify the motion. We've had a little bit of discussion. The motion was to schedule a public hearing in roughly 30 days to cover the base rate, the new base rate and the new variable rate.
To pacify Dwayne, would we be all right to move it to April? I guess I would be willing to change my motion to an April date, if that's all right.
I guess can I just ask, not that I'm opposed to changing it, but I'm just wondering what couldn't be asked in 30 days at the public hearing that seems like plenty of time to look at what's gone into the calculations and the basis for it. So I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the proper procedure, let's just take a vote on this, and if we got enough votes to postpone, to reject the motion for 30 days, then we'll entertain a new motion for 60 days, okay? Motion been made second.
But this is for
30
public hearing,
for
right?
30 For the
Public
scheduled
hearing.
public
So-
hearing
Schedule a public hearing.
on the new
correct.
rate, new rates. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same?
Aye.
I abstained, and there's a reason for it, quite frankly, because a public hearing at this stage of the game doesn't make any difference. If staff finds out that the policy that we have in place is wrong, why would we even have a public hearing? So I think we got the cart before the horse. I think we should just stall it, but it looks like 3 of them prevailed, so
Well, the
we haven't called it.
the motion is just for the rates.
The motion was to have a public hearing,
For the
The
rates.
rates, yeah.
Any ordinance change hasn't been motioned on.
Well, I think that's something else that we should probably
We can address, yeah.
deal with the ordinance. If there's an issue with our ordinance, I would like to get that cleaned up. What you had talked about, Mayor Hagan.
Right.
In regards to, I think we should have legal basically look at that portion of it and get their, feel for it to make sure that we are dealing with it correctly.
Okay. Rena, is it possible to review the ordinance in a timely manner and still entertain an ordinance change in 30 days?
Now that you might need a little more time on. Yeah.
Okay. And we've operated under this policy, under the existing ordinance this long, so even if we have the public hearing for the rate changes and still decide, or find out that we need an ordinance change, we can still do another public hearing for the ordinance change.
Correct.
I think the mere fact, just so we're addressing it, I think that's what it's gotta be. All right,
I think we've got an approved motion for a public
Thank you.
hearing on the
If
ordinance.
you need anything else from me, just holler.
yeah, thanks for everything, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren. Okay, we'll move back up to police report. Do we have any? Okay. Planning
No.
Commission,
That was just 38 hours, I think, contract hours.
Planning Commission.
Okay, the Planning Commission held a public hearing last week, Tuesday, regarding Mike Nisler and his request for a conditional use permit to, and this has to be changed, it is a for-profit elder care that they're going to be putting in where the present daycare is located. The Planning Commission did review that. They did recommend approval with a couple of stipulations. One, that the septic system be reviewed, or at least to be sure that it's in compliance, because they are adding 15 more people. This will be a conditional use permit specific to the building and as a home extended business. That's how this would be approved under. If you remember, back in 2009, there was an event center that was approved. That was for a whole nother building. Okay, the others, the hour of operation from 8 to 5. Number of parking spaces, where it really doesn't specifically say something about that in our ordinance. Determined that we got 15, up to 15 people that will be served under this proposal. But we've also determined that they won't all be driving there in vehicles, they could be transported. So there is a plan for 14, excuse me, and that was approved by the Planning Commission. The daycare, the present daycare will move back to the barn where it was in previously. I believe that was what the Planning Commission was concerned about. Dwayne, was there anything more that you remember?
The septic, the people load, and that would be a county level, to have
Yes,
the count,
yep,
the
yep. That was
septic
the main
certified,
concern.
that, because it would be the same septic system. But other than that, there was no additional recommendations that the planning and zoning had that I'm aware of that aren't in the minutes here, or that Administrator Weber just shared with us.
Oh, they did ask for the curriculum, and that was provided, and you have that in your packets. Mike Nisler is here?
Yeah,
You got any questions for Mike?
I just have one question, and that is about the inspection of the sewer system. It's been a commercial building since 1997. I've never had a problem. It's all sand and gravel. And it's about $600 for an inspection. And I really don't understand that, why I should have to do that. But it works perfect. If I had a problem, I'll take care of it, it's obvious.
Mr. Mayor?
I mean, to be business friendly,
Mr. Mayor, and Mike, that was discussed at the meeting on a limited degree, and I believe your wife was here at that particular
Yeah, I
meeting.
wasn't able to make
Yeah,
that.
and quite frankly, the concern was that the county, not a city, the county level, whenever there's several things that usually trigger a certification of the septic. One of them is a classification change, or the people load and trench bottom. It's a very technical thing, but we're going to have additional people load, and so we as a city don't make that decision, but the county would make that decision. Does that septic, the original septic and the trench bottom and the soil absorption capability to percolate have the capability of taking on that additional load? And it's maybe it's sized appropriately,
Well, it's 1,500 gallons, that's 250 a day.
but we don't make that decision. That's the county.
I mean, yeah.
Is there an existing conditional use permit for the event center still in place?
Yes.
Yeah, this has been in
Which is-
business since 97 that we've been paying commercial taxes
The
on
event
this
center has actually outdoor porta potties,
Okay.
not run into this.
It's not hooked up to the,
It's a different system totally. It's a different part of the property.
oh,
I mean, this, when we had our store, we had our daycare at the same time, and we never had a problem with it. And right now, with our daycare, we have about 3 in diapers, so there's only really 9 people. And plus, the toilets now just use 1.5 gallons per flush. So for 250 gallons, that's over 100 flushes a day that it could handle. That's why I just think it's kind of overkill.
so the event center's on its own septic system
Right, it's on a different
in
part
your
of the
house,
property.
your house and,
No, the house is on its own separate, and then the event center has portable bathrooms.
daycare's on its
The daycare and the barn have been together,
on its own system, not hooked to the house?
nothing with the house, no. We have 2 separate systems.
I mean,
But I'm just saying that the daycare and the store together never had an issue. And like I say, it can handle 250 gallons a day.
so Dwayne, you're saying our ordinance requires a septic system inspection because of this type of use change?
Classification change usually triggers it when there's a different classification of use of the building. But, you know, and a mere call to the county would probably clear it up.
Actually, I did talk to Monica Peters from the county after you and I talked, Mike, because I just want to know, because I've been told in the past, anytime there's a change that, like this, they want to know about it so they can decide.
Right.
So I said, here's what he wants to do, does he need it inspected? And her indication to me was, yes, it needs to be inspected.
That doesn't automatically trigger it that there's a problem. It just merely makes that, it doesn't have to necessarily put up a red flag and says it's not appropriately sized.
Do we even have the power to usurp the county in that sense?
I don't believe it.
I don't think so, no, that's,
So, I mean, then it's one of those things that we can't, we couldn't even if we wanted to,
Right.
not allow it.
I really question that,
It seems
that
pretty
the county
exemplary.
oversees us on
Septic
a septic
inspections,
like this.
that's all done by the county.
Yeah.
it's like feedlots, Jeff, we don't do feedlots, we don't do.
Well, I know we contract with them to manage our septic inspections or whatever, but I can't believe they can overrule our ordinance whether we want to require a septic inspection for a use change from child care to elder care. I mean, that
But no,
seems
that,
government.
they're not stopping us from doing that, but does that
No,
change
yes,
the
They're
classification? And does
saying the
that mean-
county's requiring us to do that, where I can't believe the county can require the city of Rockville
It doesn't,
require a septic inspection just because they're going from
because of the people.
12 children to 12 adults or whatever.
Yeah, but if the people load doesn't change, the same amount of people load, the septic was properly sized
Well,
for it.
Shouldn't we be able to make that classification? If the people load's gonna be the same, shouldn't we be able to say as a city that, you don't need it?
I don't know.
I'm just trying to
I'm
think
just
through this.
conveying what was brought up at the planning and zoning, and I agree.
I mean,
We have
is
way
it
too
gonna-
much government.
But
Is
it
it
will-
gonna be $600 no matter what? Like,
No,
They
it's
said that would be anywhere from 400 to 600.
To recertify,
You'd have to pump it, and then they'd have to take the covers off and check the soil on
yeah.
it.
But that's not
We've
what.
never had a hiccup, I mean,
Yeah,
that's.
but that's
all
not,
gravel.
Mike, that's not the concern. I think it's the classification. And if you say, and that's, I think, why they asked for about the curriculum. If there was 12 people that were using the system and now there's 24 people just using it as a for instance, obviously, the amount of load to the septic system is a whole lot more. So that classification would trigger that. And if they say it was designed for X amount of people load, and if it's there, wouldn't that be great to know for the county to say, yes, there should be no problem with that septic?
Well, my only worry
Can I
would
just
be that-
clarify?
My only worry coming into that would be that I hope the county doesn't do it for other reasons. Like, for instance, I mean, hopefully they're not gonna come in and say, oh, it's not meeting this and this and this and making you upgrade and all this other stuff, even though it was working just fine. That'd be my only thinking, why I wouldn't.
But I
So-
mean, I agree, sort of, Randy. I mean, I think it is a difference though between, it could be working, but is it sized appropriately for the number
That's
of people
that's
who
the
will be
issue.
using it? So can I just, so you're still going to be doing the daycare, correct?
Correct.
And adding this? And they
And
both,
that's what we had originally. We had a daycare in the barn and we had our store, and then we were using our bathrooms at both, with the store and the daycare. So it was sized 1,500 gallons, which is
right,
about
but
the
I'm
max.
guessing a store generated a lot less than elderly
Well-
people who will be there all day long, as I read this. So, I mean, I
But
do think there's a
still,
difference.
I can have over 100 flushes a day. I
No.
mean, that's, back then, the toilets were doing 2 gallons or better.
Can I just ask another question too? I read somewhere in here that this wouldn't be a licensed facility and,
It's not a licensed daycare. We call it elder garden. So it's gonna be, we're gonna have classes, like we're gonna have one geography question a day. We're gonna have one history. We wanna have their mind stimulated. We wanna do weather. We wanna have a joke of the day, the word of the day, that sort of thing.
well, I'm wondering what the requirements would be. I guess I'm sort of wondering why you are choosing not to be licensed and what
Well,
the
I was-
requirements would be if it was a licensed
Okay, I was
facility.
advised that to do a elder daycare, they have stricter laws than a nuclear power plant. Everybody, like, from Assumption on, they recommended you stay away from the elder daycare, that title, because of the restrictions on it. And we're not in the medical business. We're just offering a place for people to come out, spend the day and have a good time. And if they don't like it, if they don't like our curriculum, then I guess they won't come back. But we want to have something for the elderly that, they're going to have a good time and spread the word and come out and have, a place to go.
Sure, thanks.
And the elderly that come there will be, some might be, need help with a wheelchair, something like that.
Well,
too.
we're going to be,
Accessible
we're
for all
not
of
there to, to provide medical services.
Right, but if they
But if
want
they can
to-
come in and if they have a wheelchair, we have no problem with that. Everything is compatible with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do have to do something with our billing official to make those
Yeah,
bathrooms
I
code
talked to
compliant.
the building inspector and he had no problem. All I have to do is put a ramp in,
And there's no issues with the neighbors around there that if you've talked to in regards to, not that, I've heard other years when the neighbor's been, last year, I think some complaints put in that was dust or so common that I don't think you're gonna have, let's say you're elderly, you're gonna complain about the dust or anything that the farmer's gonna feel he's getting infringed on.
I haven't had anybody come by and
Okay.
have any problem.
But you talked to, like your neighbors there, they have no problem with it going to this elder garden that you have there right now? Changing it over to do that?
Nobody's,
Nobody said anything? Okay.
The planning commission did not put any time restriction on it,
As far as,
a length of time after which we'd revisit the conditional use permit, or,
Conditional use permit's permanent as long as they meet.
it's permanent, correct? And that's why it's specific to the building here, not the whole property.
Well, I guess there's two issues, the approval of the conditional use permit and the request of the property owner to waive the requirement for septic inspection. But we're 100% sure that the county rules,
Would require it,
yeah,
yes.
Wouldn't
Well,
necessarily need to
otherwise-
verify, if they look at the people load, or the people load that is anticipated, and if the septic system was designed and there's not conveyance of property or title, that doesn't automatically trigger that it has to be certified. It just merely says, you know, and so certification, Mike is right on, that's very expensive. We would never want to make a business go through that expense, if not have to. But to just say, here's what it was designed for, how many people load can we have, and it would be fairly easy to stay within that, you know,
well, I think it's
maximum.
clear,
Well,
I think it's clear the issue is that they're gonna come out and inspect, and it's gonna be $400 to $600 to certify anything.
Or to okay it, and I guess.
So there's no way around it. That's $400 to $600 unless we waive, unless there's a way we can waive that requirement. And if, so I guess, you know, we could approve the conditional use permit and give Mr. Nissler the opportunity to come back and I can investigate the issue of whether this
Yeah, if you have
inspection
to
is.
or not.
How about if we revisit in a year and just see if it's working okay?
Well, it's
We
not-
don't feel like we could, from what we're being told by our city administrator, we don't feel like we have the right to supersede the county. But I'm not saying I'm 100% comfortable that that's been fully investigated. Which you being the interested party have a right to investigate that further, and we'd invite you to come back if you find out otherwise. I guess that's all I can offer.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that triggered that thought process was when an individual that came here maybe a year or so ago and asked for, did the city jump through all the right hoops? And it was up in the property that's up and used to be the, up in the hills when you get up in the top, and it was, I forget the name, but it's irrelevant at this point. That's why I think they're paranoid. Saying there's a classification and why wasn't the county, because there was a kitchen change and a bathroom change on that one, same amount of people load, so why would you have to go and pay for a septic certification when you have the same amount of people load? That's what was the issue on that one.
Well, and I agree with Jeff's thinking there that, I mean, if you can get around it, you gotta deal with the county. I mean, as far as, I mean, they have their ordinances, we have ours. It's not the city that's forcing it. I think it's the county side of things. So with that being said, I'll make a motion to approve the CUP as stated, by the planning commission.
And I'll second it.
Motion's been made and second to approve the conditional use permit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes.
So that's with the inspection?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and with the understanding that you could come back, if the county can get away from it, if the county says that they don't need it, I would say come back to us, because I think we might be willing to do away with it as well.
Yeah, if the septic, if the county doesn't need to have us, we certainly don't have the need to go out there and change the septic system. But it's just a matter of, does the county have that right to change it? And a mere call that says, and if it's not the right size, then they'll come back and our records will show that we talked about it and recommended to the individual that go to the county and get it, get it looked at.
Yep.
So we're good.
Mayor Hagan, can I just ask, okay, I'm looking in our materials, and this is more a general question, not necessarily related to this, but on the application that's in here, the conditional use permit application, if you look at page 3, where it says additional conditions, and it says, the planning commission may recommend, or the city council may impose conditions considered necessary to protect the best interests of the surrounding area or the city as a whole, in addition to the standards and requirements expressly specified by this ordinance. And it says these may include but are not limited to, and one of them is a time limit on the use. And then the next page addresses, if there is a time limit, the property owner has to submit application for renewal at least 60 days before the expiration date. So I'm just wondering, I mean, just so we're clear, either we can do that, because I know we've talked about conditional use permits in the past, and I sometimes wondered whether we could impose a time restriction or not.
I know with interim use permits, yes, those are like a year, up to a year.
Well, could we just clarify, Rena, because it is
Yeah,
in
it does
this,
say that here.
since it's in the application.
I wonder if an interim use permit is supposed to be for the time-sensitive one, and the CUP is supposed to be for the
Anyway,
perpetual.
it just raised a question for me.
I think it'd be good to just check to see if there's anything in statutes that allows the city to put a time constraint on a conditional use permit, or if,
I was in agreement with, that's a permanent thing.
Yeah, why burden a business with another coming back a year from now if the system is working? And if the system isn't working, then we're gonna get to here, and then we act on it at this time. But I don't think it's wise for us to, every year you have to come back and recertify or something like that, unless it's done administratively, but that certainly wouldn't need to be council action in my mind.
next item, Rena?
The next item, the planning commission, Bill Molitor was representing his mother and father regarding the land that they have right along County Road 140, just on the west side of the city, south of Highway 23. They actually have a 40-acre parcel, Dwayne, and a 20 that's connected but would have to be split. And what they wanted to do, and this is not an application yet. It would be the first time you would be considering the rezoning to an RR. And if you remember the requirements of the RR, one was you can't take tillable land out of production. Two, you have to have two septic system sites, which they have. The others, you can't be in a feedlot, within a feedlot, 700 feet of a feedlot. And I know you don't have a colored map in front of you, but the thing here is, the planning commissioner certainly didn't take any action on it because it's not an official application. So before these people spend any big amount of money, we'd be looking at a variance from the feedlot ordinance. You'd be looking at a variance from the taking tillable land out of production, that part of the ordinance. You'd be rezoning it. It'd be two 10-acre things. And then there's a wetlands that runs right through the middle of it. So I think he can avoid staying away from that, so that probably wouldn't require a variance. But I think the planning commission kind of wanted to get your feelings on, would you, right away, this is your first rural residential, would you be looking at changing?
Our rural residential zoning allows 5-acre lots,
5-acre lots, yep,
and they want to split it to
Of
two
which-
10s?
yeah,
Just the 120-acre parcel.
right.
120-acre parcel.
Yeah.
And it needs a variance from a feedlot? What's
Yep.
the extent of the variance?
Because if you can see these circles that are right down here, it goes right over the area that would be built in.
That's
Rena,
these two
so
right
this, I guess I'm wondering the reason why do they want to split it? Would it become two buildable lots then, or it would only with variances?
Only with variances, but yes, it would become buildable,
The intent would be to have two buildable sites.
yeah.
The variances would be for the feedlot and the wet, or the
And the
feedlot
wetlands.
and tillable land.
The tillable stuff, that was the whole deal.
So is the 20 acres, is that tillable, is all?
Only about
Nope,
Oh, no.
nope,
total of
2.3 acres on one 10-acre parcel and 3.2 acres on the other
just
10-acre parcel. They're very
incidental.
small.
How much of it is wetlands? Bill, do you know? I mean, if you're looking at the whole parcel.
We didn't have wetland delineation done, but we had a wetland.
no, we do have a map showing it on there.
It's probably about 75% of the total gross 20 acres.
Is the
That
wetlands.
is in wetlands.
Is
The whole
wetlands.
large center of it is, yeah, according to the map.
I guess we didn't provide you with any information because it's not really an application yet.
Yeah,
Th-
it's,
this-
So you're saying 75% is wetlands, the other 25% is tillable? About that?
Approximately.
Approximate?
Well, there's upland too, there's only
Maybe 50%.
50% of the total.
50% of it is wet, that you would be, building in there. We had two 10-acre lots, both had two different site locations for septic tanks. They have been already identified, been surveyed.
Are we talking about
There is a feedlot
This is the
there
first
that
one.
is a 32
okay.
animal unit, grass feedlot on one side, and then there's another one that has a 65 unit feedlot, and they're both active. And we're looking to be able to sell 2 lots, ideally.
They're
And
not your feedlots? Or your
pardon?
dad's? They're not your dad's feedlots?
they are not, no,
Neighbors'
neighbors,
feedlot? What's the setback?
700 feet.
700 feet, yeah.
That's for the dwelling or for the property
From the
line?
From the feedlot.
from the feedlot,
The buildable
The property line or the building site?
building site.
building
Building
site.
site.
How far away would you be roughly?
They'd be
We
right
would
in
be
it.
within it, within that.
How far within?
Talking
Oh.
300, 500, 700? 650?
The farthest, well, I would say we'd be within 150 feet, within that 700 foot would be
So 550 feet away, you're thinking?
possibly.
That would work.
Would it be,
I don't have any measurements, you know.
But I think that's some of the stuff we probably want to know.
I was gonna say, it's kind of difficult. Would you be able to sketch out at least, like show where the wetlands are, how you're proposing to split it and
That
where the
would come
site?
with it when he does fill out a full application.
I'm just thinking before he did that much, Rena, could it just be at least sketched out on a piece of paper so we can
He
see?
did it something with sewers already, so you know.
So we could see where he's proposing to put a dwelling unit, how far it is within those.
But it's a county, it's not a city. It's a county that has the setback requirements from their
The county
feedlot.
has this feedlot setback requirement, but the city adopted it, but the city could give us variance conditional
It's
use.
debatable.
I was at the planning commission out in the audience. I think the concern that comes up is we as the council have to look at now, if he wants to build there, the feedlot, he's gonna need a variance because it's 700 feet. The next one will be variance, there's a wetland. We're gonna have to deal with that. Do we want, as a council, have the next party down the line somewhere come in with the same issue? We're gonna rezone it to rural residential, but we gotta look at a variance for this and probably a variance for that.
We don't
Now, if
need a
we do it
variance for the wetlands, we're plenty far away from wetlands.
But there could be an issue, but for the sewer, for the feedlot, now, somebody else comes down the road, does it again. Are we gonna set a precedent where we're gonna have to do this every time? It's a good idea, we wanna use the land, but we're also taking some tillable land out. A lot of people say, hey, he's only taking 2 or a total of 4 acres out of the 210 lots out of, production. But it's still tillable land coming out. But the thing is, I'm concerned about is still, if we gotta do a variance or so for his feedlot. And I think the problem is there, we're gonna open, if we do this one, you're gonna open a can of worms that's gonna be down the future road, we're gonna have problems. And it's not saying the person that lives there is gonna have a problem with the feedlot smell. The first one might be fine, but the second one, residents could cause the issue.
And keep in mind, I guess, when we did this, I mean, part of the reason for it was, yeah, I mean, you have to think long-term about neighbor conflicts. And, you know, we did pass the
Right to farm.
right to farm ordinance in the city, and I think, you know, so the part of it was saying, are we potentially setting up conflicts when we rezone property that we know is going to be, say, within a feedlot, and then so somebody buys, and then they're complaining about the smell or whatever, and so, you know, I do think we should think carefully about whether we grant variance for some of
And
those.
I agree 100%, and I think that's why I'm wondering what the footage is. I mean, if we're talking at 650 feet, I have a much easier to give a variance of 50 feet as opposed to 300 feet. I mean, I think that's, you know, something that we could look at, but that's why I'd like to see more sketched out or get the actual.
And then animal units will supply that as well if it's 400. I mean, I knew the answer last Wednesday. The county only requires the person getting the feedlot to notify the neighbors once they reach 499 animal units. So anybody can go get a feedlot permit without notifying any of the adjacent property owners. So when the feedlot went in, that potentially for resale devalued the property by 50%. So the neighbors are restricting what we can do with our property. And so we're trying to see if we can get a little variance. We're trying to meet with the city requirements of 5 acres. We're at 10 acres. We're not in the wetlands. We're just trying to generate a source of income that we own the property for since 1860. And we can't do anything with it. Yeah, we can sell it potentially farmland, but it's not ideal farmland because it's only 3.2 acres or 2.3 acres. The tillage equipment are 96 feet wide planting. I mean, so it's not ideal. Yes, it's tillable ideal. We farmed, but it's not ideal farmland. Highest and best use is residential, rural residential. So that's why we're here, just to
Well,
buy information.
Bill, is the one closest to Hodel, isn't that rented out to Krippner?
Well, all our land's rented out for tillable farmland.
It is,
Yeah,
okay.
all the tillable stuff, yes.
The important thing, Mr. Mayor and Council, and that is, time is not necessarily the essence, like there's a decision that has to be made tomorrow. There is a feedlot hearing on the 28th of February, and the county is looking at modifying theirs. What's the magical number of 700? Was there sound science when it was determined many years ago that that was the magical amount? They're looking at changing it. That was according to Mr. Bechtel at the Planning and Zoning. So a number of us are planning to go to that meeting to find out, is that magical number? And if maybe it's 500 based on the amount of animal units that are out there. If there's a lot of animal units, maybe there's a distance, but if there's a limited amount of animal units, maybe that could be shrunk, in size or something like that. The other thing that was talked about very briefly, and that is if we were trying to use highest and best use of that property, maybe there's such a thing as having a city ordinance or have the owner do a deed restriction on the conveyance of that property that says, when we transfer this, it's on the deed that it is within the current area of that, and they go ahead and buy it anyway and build their home on it. You're still getting the tax base, we're still getting the highest and best use. It's the individual that's buying it. When they research it in their title search, it says, oh, there's a deed restriction that says this land is within that known, because who knows, is that going to be forever and ever that feedlot, it's every 3 years or something like that the feedlot needs to be upgraded or continued? I'm not sure. We shudder to thought that we don't at least give it an attempt to go. And then, by the way, Andy and Eunice Molitor is my father-in-law, and I'm going to plagiarize a little bit here and say my favorite father-in-law and mother-in-law. So when the time comes, I'm allowed to discuss, but I would be recusing myself from voting, obviously, when the time comes. So with passion, I say, let's not write it off. I think at this stage of the game, it would be wise for us to defer this one, at least until we find out where the county is going. And then at that stage of the game, rather than to create, because if they turn around and say 500, it's the magic number, the problem just went away. If the 500 setback is the magical number. And there is city, or the county does have occasion where they have had variances also, and there's a request for a variance for a 469-foot setback requirement on the one that's coming up on February 28th at the county level.
Okay.
So
Well, I don't know.
Have any action?
I think we need more information.
Yeah, and there's no action item that's needed on us.
Well, I think that,
Right, no action.
that's why the
I
planning
just wanted to
commission,
get a feel, he wants to get a feel of, would you even consider it?
I would just like to say one more time, I would like us to think about why we put ordinances in place and a right to farm and all of this. If the very first one out, we're just gonna say we're gonna grant variances and ignore it. So I'm saying I think we need more information, but I still think we need to think carefully about why we put them in place.
that's my kind of feeling too, is that ordinance right to farm, that Darren, we don't want to go with that variance. You're going to run into issues and problems. We have the ordinance, let's kind of see it, because it's going to happen, the next one down the line. You can see it all over. It's happened years back with this, before a lot of these feedlot ordinances came in. But it's a good idea to utilize that land, but I'm not going to go and, well, we got to give a variance right away because it's the first time out. It doesn't work, but we can look at them, get more details, and if the county does change some of the dimension, setbacks to them, and the neighborhood feedlots could be, they might be able to add more animal units also. You don't know, which is also another, can increase the situation there, so. But I mean, get a little more information back, like from the county and Mr. Molitor too, on exactly where and what for it's gonna set. And we can look at it again.
All right.
Okay, well, I think you got the temperature a little bit anyway, council. All right, next item, Rena?
That's it for the planning commission. Well, we did advertise for a replacement for Susan, and nobody's applied, so we're extending it. If anybody knows of anybody, tell them to contact us.
Next item, old business, rental ordinance extension request.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah.
The Finance Committee discussed this earlier this evening, and this has to do with the requirement that we have inspections every 2 years on our rental properties. And I think the previous council had some conversation on this, didn't make any actions on it, but I think tonight at the Finance Committee discussion, I think we'd like to revisit what our requirements are and for rental properties and the inspection process. So we are proposing to put a moratorium on any more inspections. They have to do it every 2 years. They were last done in 2010, so they're all due right now, and a few of them are in the process. So we'd like to put a stop, I guess, on any more inspections while we revisit what we think our ordinance should be. So I guess that would be one proposal, and then we would have to frankly deal with a few people who've already done inspections and have already paid for them, and the city staff is gathering what that cost would be, because we did have to pay the inspector, so if we don't collect it, the city would have to be paying it. So I think we need more information before we decide there. So we'll relook at that. And then we did have a request from a property owner who owes, from 2010, he owes $2,800.
I think it was 36.
Or 30, okay.
Well, I wasn't
36.
sure, and that's why I said 10%
Yep.
every month.
So anyway, we're proposing to let him pay 10% per month for the next 10 months so that it is fully paid by the end of 2013, and he was agreeable to that as well. So I guess we would make that as a motion to the council.
A moratorium?
Well, first I'll make a motion about letting him pay 10%.
I'll second that one.
Motion been made second to allow Todd Beamer to pay his past due inspection fees, 10% a month for the remainder of 2013. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Need a motion on a moratorium?
Yeah, and then I'll make a motion to put a moratorium on any more inspections until we've revisited what our ordinance is.
And I'll second that.
And so, Mr. Chair, if I could, ordinance have, I mean, this, does it have a sunset provision
I would
built
say
in?
60 days should be.
Moratorium,
Sure.
60,
Yeah.
60 days maximum
Yep.
of
Well, it
that?
could be extended, but,
Okay.
but I think in 60 days, we should be able to figure out if we want to change
Sure.
it.
Either we decide to go, okay,
Yep.
Okay, motion been made second to approve a 60-day moratorium on rental inspections. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes.
So staff will be sending out information.
Probably want to let
And I'll let the building official know that he's holding off, yes.
New business, Burke Street improvement, soil boring report.
There you get a copy of the report from IT&T, and you have a letter of recommendation from our engineer who recommends, it's no surprises what we found in that. In order to move ahead with the 429 process, which is the special assessment process, you would have to order up a feasibility report. And David is suggesting it will not exceed $700 to do that. That's a resolution, and I don't know that I have one type for you, but
also move to
It's
accept the
standard.
$700 feasibility study on Berg Street.
I'll second it.
Motion been made second to approve the feasibility report on Burke Street. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. MnDOT Master Partnership Agreement.
The next one is a resolution adopting a MnDOT's master partnership contract. You know, we went together with Cold Spring and Richmond like 2 years ago, purchased air patching equipment, and we had to go through this big thing of filling out this master partnership contract with MnDOT. It's quite a thick document, and apparently that ran out in June of 2012. This one will take us till 2017.
So it's just to extend.
Continuation.
Yes, to
Yeah.
extend it. Also move to accept.
I'll second.
Motion been made and second
This
to,
discussion a little bit. This master plan here, this partnership, what does this all involve? I read what's here. Does it tell us where we can buy or?
We buy it from them, and that's the only way
can't
we
go
can get
anywhere
it.
else?
No, well, I believe it has to come from them. They sell the oil
The oil and it's,
that goes into the equipment. Don, we haven't been billed yet for 2012, so
I know
guess
we haven't been billed for that
they're
one.
more worried about the contract than billing us, so
Yeah.
I don't
Were
know.
we aware of that when we did the joint powers of the, that equipment, that this
No,
even
that's,
was in
I
existence?
think that came after that. But it's kind of,
Litigation,
It's overkill, but
that's what it is.
I mean, the
Additional
idea
layer of
here is-
government.
is to save money by bulk
by
buying,
using
right?
their oil,
Yes.
it's
Well,
heated up
bulk
and
buying,
everything.
right.
It's still
When we
used
get it.
oil, probably.
Motion been made and second to extend the MnDOT Master Partnership Contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes.
The next one is a resolution adopting Stearns County All Hazard Mitigation Plan. And what this is, they have put together the plan for the county so that in the event we are hit with a big disaster, that if FEMA comes in here, we've been identified in that plan and that we could get, you know, assistance from them. As far as Rockville, for sure, the area along Highway 23, that's in the DWISMA, the Drinking Water
water.
Supply Management Area, is right by the Hanson Farm. If there was a truck that was loaded with propane, came through and spilled, I mean, that would be devastating to the water. And that's why this is identified in their plan as one of the, you know, all these agencies need to know that.
And there was a lot of discussion about that in our wellhead protection with the thing about the fact that 10 years earlier, when the DWISMA and the impediments of clean water, that Highway 23 going around to Core City was not there. And so now we have to do everything in our power to make sure that the proper people are notified, and that's part of that plan. So we really don't have a choice. So I move that we accept Resolution 2013-05.
I'll second it.
Motion been made and second to approve said resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Committee reports. Anything quick on Rocori Trail, or? Okay, we can pass on that one. Public Works.
Well, basically, the Public Works meeting, we discussed the possibility of looking into limiting or setting a restriction on the number of garbage haulers in the city. What we're planning right now, we're gonna get more feedback from, the city of Sauk Rapids adopted a policy to, limiting the number of haulers. So we're gonna get as much information from them, and maybe Cold Spring and others, and hold a public hearing in the future and come up with some numbers and get the citizens' input. Do we wanna limit it to 1, 2, and is there a cost savings to the citizens? So that's where we're at right now, and this is also a possibility that will save some wear and tear on our roads as we fix them up, is basically what we're looking at. And we'll be open for suggestions from anybody in the city here on their feelings. Let us know, so we get a good overall handle on what you want us to do. And then, like you said, 200 Berg Street, we're looking at cost and maybe do some improvements there. And I emailed Jeff Howell today to see if he can come up with some information on bonds or anything of funding that's there for roads, because he's on the transportation part at the state legislature. So hopefully maybe he's got some ideas on how we can save, maybe get some fund to help with our roads.
Thanks, Don.
But, Jeff, did you have a question?
Yeah, on this garbage business, I know there's other towns look at, well, one hauler that a wise decision to limit competition? My question would be, I don't know if you've looked at these garbage trucks lately, but they seem to be getting bigger and bigger and heavier. I'm wondering, can they even go on residential streets legally anymore for axle weight? I mean, you've got tandems turning and all that kind of stuff. That's what tears the roads up. Not probably so much 3 or 4 garbage trucks, but the matter of how big they are.
Yeah, that was when the person over there discussed that. His trucks come into town, they weigh 28,000 pounds empty.
Empty, yeah.
And most garbage trucks are that weight. And that's why we said, can there be a possibility of lighter trucks also? That's why we're going out, we're gonna look to get information. Do they all use the same size truck? Do they send a smaller truck out for recycling in one trip and so forth? And he also said too, like, and another complaint we heard was, they don't close their hopper, they spread garbage all over the road too, you know, who to contact. So that's why we're gonna go out and get information. Sauk Rapid and the other one before we make a decision. Because it's gonna vary, the roads out in the other part of the city are probably a little heavier road than in the city, like right through here, than the street by my house.
On the other side of the coin is, you get one garbage hauler, he's gonna come into town with that truck and he's gonna pack it as tight as he can, so he's gonna be maxed out. Whereas possibly if you have 3 or 4 garbage haulers, they're not all gonna be full, so that's something to consider too. I
Well,
think.
yeah, that's why we're going out and get the information we can from these cities that have gone to that. And like you can bring up your points to us, so we have a feedback. You maybe don't like that garbage collector, or maybe you dispose of your garbage, you have a place you can dispose of it already. You don't have garbage collecting, but everybody, both supposedly in the county, is supposed to have, Stearns County has that you have to have garbage collected. Big farmers have dumpsters where they throw a lot of their, their garbage and from their hay bags and everything like that, and so there's a lot of issues we want to look at before we really decide this is what we're gonna do.
Well, I think the main thing is to see if they're overweight. If they're overweight, they gotta do something different. That'd be my opinion.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we'll look at all that. That was about it.
Okay, thanks, Don. Sue, did we cover everything on finance? Or was it?
I think we covered everything.
Okay. Administrators' correspondence?
Number 1, I'm asking approval for you to schedule a public hearing for March 20th at 6:30 PM. This is a supplemental assessment on Archon Construction, and it's a lot that's at the end of the cul-de-sac. That is a buildable lot, but mistakenly, we've been applying the whack and sack fees to that lot, and it should have been to the lot right behind it, which is an outlot. And we had to go through the supplemental assessment process.
Also move.
Second.
Motion made and second to schedule a supplemental assessment for March 20th, 6:30. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes.
Then the next one is to schedule another public hearing for the same evening, adopting a shade tree EAB, that's that emerald ash borer ordinance. Last summer, when we got the grant to put in the trees around the park, this was a stipulation, this is a part of it. If we should end up and have an invasion of something bad, the only way we can get any help or the state will come in is if we have this adopted. It's not going to cost us anything. It's the ordinance that I downloaded from the League of Minnesota Cities has been reviewed. We're going to, shorten it up to fit our needs. Does talk about appointing a tree inspector. It's a May thing, so that's not when you have to do. And the tree survey we're not going to do because there's an aerial view that's already been done of all the trees in our area. Maintenance plan simply is, for those trees that we did plant, we have a watering plan, and, that's being done by our Public Works Director. So I just need you to
Also move,
schedule that public hearing.
Second.
Motion made second to approve or schedule the public hearing for the shade tree ordinance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes.
And the last one I have is a request for action to close Fund 205, which was that Recording Trails Fund, to 202. And so whatever money's left in that account, there was some interest earned last year. We want to put that in 202, which is the Parkland Dedication Fund.
So moved.
Second motion, been made and second to close Fund 205 into 202. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Additions to the agenda.
Additions to the agenda, you have a request from, action from the fire department. They want to purchase some and fix up some personal protective equipment, and the amount is $1,242.85. It's in their budget.
Also move.
Second.
Motion been made and second to approve the fire department request to upgrade the personal protective equipment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Abstain.
Don abstains, motion passes.
Even though he requested it.
Yeah.
Got it. The next one is the 2 AM liquor license renewal. Apparently, Betsy and Jeff Gerger were supposed to have this done before February 8th. Don't know.
Also move.
I'll second. Motion been made and second to approve the 2 AM liquor license renewal for Gergers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes.
That's it.
Do we have anything
Before we go
else?
to open forum, one quick one, if I may, Mr. Mayor, 30 seconds or less, the Recorey Trails Construction Board. I see the esteemed City Administrator of Richmond, and that triggered my thought process. Rick Tallman and I serve on the Recorey Trails Construction Board representing Rockville, and the question is coming up constantly about the Phase 3 of the Recorey Trail Construction Board from right here to Core City to 138 and 6 over by the Racquetball Club, as to if we, the city of Rockville, have started dialogue with the county in terms of the reverting back. The county is wishing to, or would yearn to have the return back of 138. Am I correct with that, Rena?
Yeah.
That's in the early stages, and nothing has happened yet from Rockville that I'm aware of, but that's a concern that the Recorey Trails Board has as they go into that phase. And so it would behoove us to probably suggest to staff that we start that dialogue with the county, or is that county? I don't know how it starts. I have no idea.
Wouldn't it have to go through the Corey Trail? Would they start it?
No, it would be, if the county wants to give it back to the city, and we,
Oh,
the
I see
city,
what you're
accept that, that would make a big difference, because in that process, then Recorey Trails would say, well, gee, maybe we can, modify it, but if the county is saying, here, Rockville, you can have it, and we'll say, well, for a nominal fee, we'll take it, then we can take that money and put it into roads, and maybe that one will turn into, some of the people out there feel there's a lot of truck traffic from the old Mick Pit and also from Vern Saldal stuff. So some of the local ones, if you talk to them, they prefer to not have truck traffic, and maybe a cul-de-sac or two would be a arterial street or a collector street. And I don't know, do we talk about that, Don?
This was
At the-
talked about when I was previously on the council out there, there's the cost factor, if we wanted, at that time, they wanted the county to upgrade the road before the city would take it, and there was cul-de-sacs discussed about where to put them, but I think the cost factor and who's gonna do what is gonna be the key issue there, but I can run down one day, I can have staff, I can check with engineers down at the county what their feasibility, but at that time, the road does need, they've gravelled it, but it should be upgraded a little more, and then we have to grade it every year or two, but if you put tarring in that, it's gonna be, and the county, I know, has no money, if we wanted it tarred before they gave it us, they have no money to do it. And we have no money either to do it, so, but I mean, we can start some dialogue, I can run there one day, or we can have Dave, and I can talk to him about regards how serious are they and what's involved? Is it gonna be upgraded a little more? Do we have to do this before we'll?
Is the county, where did the process start from, Rena? Maybe you can help us out. When did they contact us originally? They contacted us, or did we ask them?
Yeah, that was under Mitch Anderson's tenure.
Okay,
He came
sorry.
to us, and we did hold an informational meeting with the residents regarding this very issue, and there's a lot of mixed emotions on what should be done. And we had like 3 different plans,
Yes, SCH had 3 different plans in regards
really?
to, yes.
Okay.
and then
I
it
wasn't aware
dropped.
of that.
It
Okay.
dropped after that, but,
Well, that answers it, so Recorey Trails at least knows that we have talked about it here, and it's in the Streets Command. Thank you.
All right, open forum.
Just a question, when, we didn't set a time for the public hearing earlier in the
first one's at 6:30, the second one at 6:40.
Are you talking about the increase
water
in the
rate.
rates?
The water rate,
There was a public hearing talked about.
the water
I have
rates.
one.
Oh, yeah, I think we decided March, the March 20th.
Oh, then it would be 6:30, because they always start at 6:30.
20, okay.
6:30 on when?
March 20th.
20th?
We have one at 6:30 on March 20th already.
Well, those
Do
will
we?
get moved
Yep,
back.
okay.
Make it 6:50.
6:50,
6:50?
probably 6:50, because that might be a little
So the water one will be at 6:50.
Yeah. Okay, Don's got.
I have one item to bring up here. Up at the fire department, I was told to bring this up, we have two side-by-side or ATV, and we purchased one years ago, and we want to advertise for bids and that to sell it, because the other one is like on a lease program, one of our firemen knows somebody, and we got it there, so we want to advertise this other one for bids, whatever, we'll get the best bid we can. Some of them would like to use that money to purchase a trailer to haul the other four-wheeler, or other side-by-side around. You know, because now we have to use a big city trailer, and our vehicle throws us all over the road. So, just like permission, we can go and advertise for bids. One of our firemen will take care of that. We get the bids in. We'll run it for so long, and hopefully we can get our money back out of it, and we'll reinvest it into equipment again.
Also move to accept that proposal.
I'll second.
Motion made second to approve the fire department putting out for bid the side-by-side ATV. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
I'll abstain.
Don abstains, motion passes.
One last comment, sir, and that is the report from the Park and Rec Committee oversight. They are having a winter fun fest this Saturday, this Saturday at the community park, the ice arena, to finally have it. Last year, we didn't have a winter, so there was no appropriate time to have it, so it's finally having it this one, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Any and all are invited. That's Scott Stenset that would be spearheading that, and he'll be out there. 1 to 3, apple cider, and great music, and ice skating on the ring. And we'll have a little bonfire.
Okay, open forum.
Name is Scott Palmer, live on Grand Lake. I'm also chair of the Grand Lake Improvement District. I just wanted to call attention to an article in the St. Cloud Times that I was really pleased to read, and it has to do with a development on Big Fish, and it's between Big Fish and Long Lakes, and I was delighted to read that that Bill Schnettler and Joel Meyer, who have developed properties in the city of Rockville on Pleasant Lake, have put in a development that goes along with a conservation overlay that they have in the Avon Hills area. And the thing that really sparked my interest is it said in the article, and I've got copies of the article, it said in 2010, Stearns County adopted a new land use ordinance that included a tool called an overlay to preserve farmland or natural resources. And then a comment at the end, it said, "We are fortunate to have had time to get these development rules in place because the development will certainly heat up again." And I'm aware that our stock market is nearing the all-time high. I'm really hoping that development will be sparked again. And I know that I'm aware that the city of Rockville did try to adopt a conservation overlay, and the city chose to not adopt that. I believe that was developed in 2006. Now that Stearns County has adopted a 2010 overlay, I would really encourage the Planning Commission or City Council to at least revisit this as hopefully the economy continues to improve and development is spurred again, so we don't have a lot of mistakes in our development and that we can proceed in a way that protects our natural resources here. So it's just a comment and a kudos to some developers who wanted to do good for the land and the waters and the lakes. And so I'm thrilled about that. Would love to see Rockville do that as well.
Thank you, Scott.
Speed sign.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same.
Very good.
We're adjourned.